Hi, my name is Dan Ferren, and this is my friend,
I'm Aaron Hale.
and we are both life coaches for men. And we have known each other for a while, worked together a little bit. And a few weeks ago, we jumped on a Zoom together just to kind of catch up. And it was such a powerful conversation. Halfway through, I said, we should be recording this. And because we discovered that there's just a lot of things that we share in common. And we're both very passionate about it. Wouldn't you say, Aaron?
Absolutely. It's always interesting where you have like a lot of the same kind of like foundational ideas, but you express them and you explore them and you kind of like you work with people in different ways using those same sort of principles. And there was so many different tangents that we went off on, just because it was so interesting. We could just really see these things in each other and also in the men that we work with.
Absolutely. And that's what we discovered is that while our approach to working with our clients is different, and maybe we want to talk about that later, but our approach is different. The foundation, some of those foundational principles are very much the same, and we've read some of the same books and we have some of the same ideas. And what was so exciting to me is just the passion and the energy that came out of that conversation. And so we want to share with you people out there that may watch this video. We're just going to talk for a little while about some of those foundational principles, some of the things that we believe about men and what's important to us and how coaching helps that. And we hope that something that we say strikes a nerve or resonates with you and challenges you, helps you, and is beneficial to you. So with that in mind, Aaron, let's just talk about what some of those foundations are.
I think because
Yeah,
we are so passionate about them, like that's really going to come across in what we talk about as well. So
yeah,
even if we can just, if what you get from this is just to get a bit of passion and get a bit of renewed motivation, enthusiasm for life, then that's job done, job well done as far as I'm concerned.
absolutely, absolutely.
So the
So,
foundations,
yeah, what do you think?
trying to
Where do you start?
think back to what they were. I think values comes back to is kind of at the core of it. And it is missing in a lot of ways. I mean, it used to be that our dads would pass it down to us, or some sort of elder male figure. But I mean, I didn't have a dad growing up. I didn't even have like any kind of male role model growing up. So looking for that was really tough for me. And I think once, much later in life, at sort of 33, I started to really, what's important to me, like rather than being guided by this invisible hand pulling the strings, I started to get more intentional about choosing what was important to me and making sure that I was really living up to that on a daily basis. What was your experience with values?
Well, I'll get to that, but I want to ask you something.
Sure.
You began to be intentional about your values or what was important to you. What prompted you to be intentional?
So I got to the stage where all of my friends were getting married, having kids, wanting to slow down, and I felt like I was still wanting to keep going faster. So I uprooted myself, moved to a different country. So I think it was that, you're in the same country all of your life and you're doing essentially you're having the same thoughts, the same feelings, doing the same things every day, and unsurprisingly getting the same results. So when I moved to another country, suddenly I got this opportunity to reinvent myself with all of these different new experiences, new feelings, new thoughts. And that started to really get me to question, who I am, who I wanted to be. And also there was a lot of pain there around, what am I going to do now with life? So I think it was the new experience, but also the pain that was really forcing me to confront this stuff and to really get clear on what I wanted in life.
Was that move your choice or was that for job or what was that?
Well, I had no idea what I wanted to do job wise. And it was like, I don't know. So do you know what? I'm just going to bury my head in the sand and go and party for 2 years and travel. And maybe I'll just bump into, I honestly, and as deluded as this sounds, I was expecting to just meet people at a bar in London and for them to just say, you're awesome, come and work with us. I was just hoping, and it never happened. I don't know why it never happened, but it just never happened.
Well, yeah, I mean, why not? That always happens.
That was the plan, just to fall into something like that. But you know what? Yeah, it still all works out the way that it's meant to work out. So
Now and I'll get to your question in a minute, but that's interesting because I was thinking about that, and um, so many men do not live intentionally, but they want good things to happen. They want their life to have meaning. They want their life to have purpose. But like you, going to London, expecting a job to happen, that's how they live. They just expect that things are going to work out.
Yep.
No, it doesn't. You have to be intentional, and that may not mean moving to a different country.
yeah,
But what you said, pain, it usually requires to live intentionally, requires something usually that's not going to be easy.
Hmm.
And it takes courage, and it takes determination, and it takes effort. But you always have to remember, what's the payoff? What am I doing this for?
to get out of the pain.
Exactly.
Hmm.
To make a new way of being,
Yeah.
to be in control of your life. So for me, the foundation is definitely values and purpose. Authenticity is a big one in there too. Living authentically who you are. And part of that is knowing what your values are. When we talk about values, we're not talking about, right and wrong. That's part of it. But values, what's important to you? What do you have to have in your life for life to have meaning? We were just talking, people, look, I've got plants all around me. I value being in nature. I value spending time in nature. I got to go for hikes. I have plants all around me. I know trees and flowers and plants and birds, and that's one of my values. It's important to me. It's part of who I am. And so knowing your values and living them so that you can be authentic in the world, and that plays into your purpose. Those things play into your purpose. And that's really important. Honoring your values, knowing them, honoring them, supports living your purpose in life. And part of that is the authenticity. When you don't know your values,
Yep.
or when you are not living them and honoring them, what happens is you begin to live and honor everyone else's.
Yep.
You begin to live their expectations. You begin to live, and that's what happened to me. That's why I'm able to do what I do, because I've been through it. I got to a point where I literally didn't wake up, but I had this moment, this light bulb moment where I thought, I don't even know who I am anymore. Because I was so busy living for everybody else, living what everyone else expected and wanted and needed me to be, instead of being true to myself. And so that's why values are so important, and foundational.
And values is a big word, like, so to kind of circle back around to one of your points, like living an intentional life with your values. Like, a value is your body, your like intuition, like your soul, like whatever you want to call it. It's telling you that I need this. So it's like, I need recognition in life. I need love. I need all of these different things. So when we talk about values and living intentionally with those values, some people are intentional with values, but as you were saying, like they're not your values. They're values that your parents might have had for you, the values that society say that you should have for you to be a man in society and to be worth, or to have value. You need to be doing these things. And sometimes we can be living up to our values on a daily basis, but we still don't feel like our needs are being met. We still feel exhausted and drained, even though we're ticking all the boxes, we're doing all the right things, but they're just not the right things for us. And I think you make a really good point there with the authenticity, because that's where it's about, you could be living to values and you could be living intentionally, but until you experience that pain and you start peeling the layers back and start peeling back all of the kind of conditioning that we're told that we should want, that's where we start to get to the more nitty gritty of what it is actually for us and how we want to express those values and honor them, because the rules that how other people might be able to have those needs met might be completely different to the rules that we want. And rules are only, I know that rules have a purpose and they keep us safe, but they also keep us in a system. They can also be very rigid. So you look at Elon Musk or some of those, or Steve Jobs, like these are people who don't play by the rules. And we all have that ability as well to change the rules as we see fit, to make life a better experience and to enable us to better meet our needs as well.
Exactly. And you mentioned the word pain, and pain feels different for everybody, but you're at that point when you need to deal with it, when you need to deal with your values, and you're stuck because there's something, you just have this low grade fever of frustration or disappointment or anger or malaise or lack of energy, lack of zest for life. It's just there. You're unhappy.
It's even just tolerance. You're just
tolerating. Yeah, just tolerance. And that's pain. And then when we decide, wait a minute, I need to even figure out what my values are, and we start living them and we start adjusting to them, guess what? That brings more pain, because there are going to be people who push back against that. What are you doing? This isn't how we live. This isn't how you were taught. This isn't the way we function. Well, It is now for me. That's difficult.
Yeah,
that's challenging. Exactly. It takes a lot of courage and confidence. And our world makes it so easy on us. We're not often faced. I mean, we don't have to go out and kill animals for our food. We don't. We go to the store and buy it. And so the idea of having courage and confidence is something that a lot of us have never had to face. There are people in the military that have been in war zones and things like that, but confidence is a big deal. And believing that, first of all, worth. We should talk about that a little bit. Finding your own value and worth. We as men, we get so tied up in what we achieve as a symbol of worth, or how well we provide for our family as a symbol of worth, or the vacation that we are able to take, or the car we're able to drive, or the clothes that we're able to buy, or the dinners that we're able to go out and experience, or that's not worth. So go ahead, talk about that for a little bit. What are your ideas?
There's so much we can talk about there. Just to finish off quickly with pain, and going back to what you were saying about we don't have to go and go and hunt and kill our own food. I think there's so many experiences in life that we have now, like with all of our modern advances, is that we don't have to go through the pain. So we go into this, like what you mentioned, malaise of just, life isn't really happening to us. We're not really playing an active role in it, because everything kind of gets delivered to us now. And it's because of that so many people don't actually experience the pain that leads them to want to change and transform, because they're numbing themselves with alcohol, with pills, with Netflix, with social media, with sex, like with all of this stuff that is just kind of, it's taking the pain away from now. But they don't actually change anything. So they're just in this constant holding pattern. But also it's so self-destructive, because every time they numb themselves with one of these coping mechanisms, the black hole just continues getting bigger and bigger and bigger, because it is a drug in some way, shape or form. And they need a bigger hit the next time they need to distract themselves from that same thing. And you get to the point where it can get very, very dark very, very quickly. And with each thing, the intensity needs to go up as well. So you can find yourself in pain, but you can be a lot further down the track, just because you keep having all of those avoidance tactics and those clever ways of distracting yourself. And life is like, if we think about, like, everything is for us is dialed up. So all of our everything that we taste is dialed up to the max, like so much sugar, so much salt, so much fat. The things that we do that are exciting, that are enjoyable to us, like roller coasters, going traveling, like all of these things, like the intensity is just so high. But when you think about trying to meet your own needs and to be like a really a self-sustaining man, or a man of self-mastery, our needs actually become a lot less intense, or our meeting those needs becomes a lot less intense. And then that's something that we can always give to ourselves without being reliant on the outside world. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of finish off on the page. Did you have anything that you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, one of the things I say is, I help men make life happen rather than life just happening to them. And that's what we're talking about is getting out of that, just life is just happening and I'm just floating along with it. And life is not meant to be lived that way.
Mm.
And we talk about all these things that come at us that stimulate, and that, the next big hit. Really, the man that is mastering himself and is being intentional can actually quiet himself and be okay being quiet. Whether that's sitting and reading, whether that's meditating, whether that's being alone for a bit. If you can do those things and not freak out and not be bored and not be antsy, then that's a good thing.
Yeah. And society says that stuff is boring. Like if you want to look at people and spending money, going out, wearing nice clothes, buying expensive cars, that's the stuff that's exciting. That's the stuff that, and going back to your point about, a man's worth is in the things that he can buy, in the kind of life that he can provide for other people, the value that he brings. And it can be such a toxic thing where you just have to bring. There was of all people, Chris Rock quote, it was one of his jokes at one of his gigs, and it was, women, children, and dogs or animals are the only ones who are deserving of unconditional love. For a man to get love, he needs to be contributing something. He needs to be offering some kind of value. So it's always that the man's value as a person is always determined by what he does for other people, which any kind of transactional relationship is horrible. Like it's coming from a place of lack rather than a place of love. And it's just, you can never trust anything that is coming from a place of, I'll do this for you if you do that for me. That's the basis of business and most of the relationships, unfortunately, in our lives. But imagine how things would be different if everything came from, I'm just going to do this because I've already met all of my needs. I'm good. And I want to give this away to you as well. Like,
yeah. That's an important point. I'm going to do this for you out of love. I'm going to do this because I have taken care of my needs. Yeah. That is a key point, because so often we feel like we have to do it all for you, daddy, or whatever, and take care of all the things, do all the things for everyone else at the expense of our own hobbies, values, interests, life, pursuits, passions, whatever it is. But you cannot pour into someone else's cup if your cup is empty. Yeah. You cannot love others if you do not love yourself first. You cannot take care of others if you have not taken care of yourself. And the risk the thing that generates is a feeling of selfishness. That's a socially, that's a story, and that's a socially imposed feeling. There's nothing selfish about that. What do they say when you're in the airplane and they're going through the pre-flight, safety talk? If the masks come down, put yours on first, then help someone else with theirs.
You might even say it's inauthentic guilt. So it's like, it is guilt that you feel, so you're still validating that you feel it, but it's inauthentic. It's imposed on you from outside, rather than something that you feel genuinely guilty for, because it's, that you're out of integrity.
Exactly. Yes. And when we think, when we do that, when we live that way, we think we're being such a wonderful person, and people may even tell us how great a person we are, dad, husband, father, whatever. But honestly, if we are able to focus on what's important to us, our values, um, live our purpose, discover our purpose and live our purpose and realign our life more authentically to our purpose and our passions, then everything else is going to fall in place. When we're living inauthentically, it's like we're having to push and do and do and push and push and push and push and work. And we exhaust ourselves. We sit, all we have energy for is to sit on the couch at night for an hour and watch TV before we fall asleep and then have to get up and go to bed. That's not life. When we live in alignment, there is this energy and this flow that comes. There is this life, this excitement. And then when we're living that passion and purpose, then we go home and our wife and kids have a spouse that is excited and energetic and is more focused on them. And the employer and the coworkers have an employee and coworker that is generating good ideas and is bringing in money and is doing good job. And our community benefits because we feel like we have more energy to serve. And it's instead of push, 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 we're pulling. That energy is it flows, and it's just so much better. How do we help guys figure this out? How do we wake them up?
Well, again, I think it is this. It's really challenging these expectations that are unrealistic that we're trying to live up to. Sorry, very rarely get calls these days. Sorry. So it's the really challenging the status quo of the expectations that all guys are trying to live up to these days, and really just questioning them. Is this really something that's for me? And if not, then taking responsibility to choose a different rule to live by. And like when you were saying, when you were talking about cup, like if your cup is full, you can keep on pouring into other people. Like there's nothing to stop you there. So I think that also the way that, and a lot of people, I'm very much an idealist, and a lot of people might say that's all well and good in theory, but it doesn't work in the real world. But I think that every person can be going from waking up in the morning and having a full cup, like having all of their needs met. They're enthusiastic. They're really excited for the day. Go to a job or a business that they love, and anything that you do that is in alignment with you, it's not going to take energy from you. It's going to give you energy back. So you get to the end of the day, and if you're doing something that you love, you enjoy doing, you find purpose in, you're going to leave work and you're actually going to have more energy and more to be able to pour into people. So then you go home and you might go and do a hobby or something that you like. Now, again, you may not have been able to do that before when you had a job that drained you because you didn't have the energy. But now, because you've got extra energy, you can, again, do something that you enjoy doing. Then you come home and you see the family. And again, your relationship is getting everything that it needs because you have transparency and you've just got a really open communication. And again, you're getting your cup filled because that relationship nourishes you. So I mean, there's so many things in our day that suck us dry of energy, but really, if we created our lives with intention, in line with our values, and we took fierce responsibility about making sure that we're always integrity, we would be bouncing off the walls. Like we would have so much energy, it would not even be funny. But it's just we've resigned ourselves to, well, that's all well and good in theory, but in reality, it doesn't work like that. I say BS. I say, have you even tried?
Exactly. Try it.
Yeah.
Here, yes. Fierce responsibility. I like that phrase. Fierce responsibility. I'm probably going to forget it, but I like it. Fierce responsibility.
You got the recording, so.
Yeah, oh, we do. Right.
This time we remembered.
Here's. Ooh, this is good. I don't want anybody listening to this to get the idea that what we're suggesting is easy or simple. That's why we use the words like fierce responsibility, pain. It is not easy to go from where you are in this position of malaise and unhappiness and unfulfillment to a position where you have that energy and that fierce responsibility of being authentic and your values and living your values and pouring in, being able to pour into others. It is not easy, but the key component in my thought we'll see what you think about this. The key component to being able to do that is an undeniable, unshakable, unbendable belief in your own worth and value.
Hmm.
I am worth it. Just simply, not because of what I do, not because of what I provide, simply for the fact of who I am.
Hmm.
I have value and I have worth, and I am worthy of living an authentic life.
Yeah. Yeah.
People may disagree with that. I may run into some roadblocks with some folks, but we will work through it because I am worth it. I deserve it. I am worthy. I have value. And for a lot of guys, that's going to be a hard statement. It was for me.
Yeah.
I mean, the first time you say that to yourself, it feels weird.
Yeah.
Sometimes. And where do you think that comes from?
That we have to do something in order to have value.
Yeah, that we know that the struggle to believe in our own value and worth.
I think there's a lot of things that are working at play here, like marketing. We're getting told every single day, hundreds of, if not more times, that we're not enough in some way, shape, or form. You're not enough, so you need to buy this for you to be enough. So I think that's obviously one factor. I think, I mean, no matter what, we can have the best parents in the world, and they can do the best job, and they can give us everything that they can. But no matter what, every kid will walk away from their upbringing thinking, I didn't get this, they didn't do that. Like there's some sort of there's some mess up where you didn't get what you needed. So I think that in itself, because as kids, even as adults, we're the center of the universe and everything is our fault. If we didn't get what we needed from our parents, that's our fault. It's because we weren't enough. And we have to take that responsibility, because we can't turn around and say, F you, mum and dad, you didn't get me this, because when we were young, that would have meant we would have gotten thrown out, and then we would have had no shelter, no food, and we would have died. So Absolutely. We have to turn that in on ourselves. So I think that's a lot of where this not enoughness comes from.
Right, I would agree.
Specifically as men though, again, I think that's where you get that feedback loop of society saying, it's a man's job to provide. It's a man, like a man only has value based on the value that he brings other people. And I think like what you were saying, like we deserve this, like there is such a sense of worth. And I think there's another element there that's around shame. There's a lot of shame that I think men particularly carry, and that reinforces that I'm not enough story. And it comes from not being able to talk about our feelings, not being able to talk about things that we're ashamed of, not being able to talk about these things. So whereas women usually have, they're much better at talking about their feelings. And if you can talk about your feelings, you can process them and it's gone. You don't have to keep on carrying it around with you. But us men, we keep on carrying it around and carrying it around. And that's why we're out to prove something in the world. We have to bring in, we have to achieve this thing. We have to bring in this much for our family, because that's how we show our worth, because we don't have any kind of mechanism or community where we can offload the stuff off of our shoulders that keeps telling us, you're not good enough, you're not good enough, you did this, you're not good enough, which we're still carrying around from, maybe when we were 16 years old or something like that.
Yeah. And you tapped into something there that's important, is that we men generally are not, many of us are not even tapped into or aware of our feelings. We've been conditioned, and I'm sure there's some sociological explanation for this. We've been conditioned that pretty much the only emotion we're allowed to exhibit is anger. But anger is not a standalone a standalone emotion. Anger is sort of the result of and the expression of hurt, loss, frustration, and probably a lot of other feelings as well.
If I add something there?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think so. Our generation, maybe the previous generation, I think anger was definitely, like, it was always easier and more socially acceptable for a man to show anger than it was to show sadness. I think that that is changing. I think that has changed, and I think it's, you know, men are petrified of being seen as being put in the toxic masculinity category. So it's like now I feel like there's a lot of men, like it's I think it's the same problem with two different expressions. One is the angry man who probably does walk around like the alpha male who just disregards everyone's feelings and just out to get what they want. But I think that there's a growing class of pushovers, Mr. Nice Guys, who don't get what they want. Anger is what protects your boundaries. So if men are told, or boys are told, you can't be angry, then you then have nothing to defend your boundaries. So of course people walk all over you, and you still feel that anger, but you turn it in on yourself. So you turn into being someone who is just super like resentful of yourself for not defending yourself and to not keep yourself in integrity, and you become a threat to yourself at that point.
Right, exactly, because you know what anger inward turns into? Depression. Depression. That's one definition that I used to use as a counselor. Depression is anger turned inward. And along with that can come a lot of anxiety. Exactly. When you are not allowed to express anger or hurt, it's got to go somewhere. And so it either explodes and you get those guys that just, break glass and shatter mirrors and, whatever, they just have this rampage, or it oozes out the side like a volcano. It just oozes out the side, and it's this slow burn, and it turns into depression. It turns into anxiety. It turns into resentment, headaches, all sorts of things. And I guess what, authenticity means tapping into your feelings and being okay, because even that whole toxic masculinity thing is a societal construct. And we're putting ourselves in their box.
Just societal construct. Yes, sir. What were we saying?
Just because you get angry doesn't mean you're toxic. It's normal. It's living that way constantly. What were you going to say?
And of course, it also becomes a label that people just start throwing around, and it made like psychopath, narcissist. These are all terms that used to mean something, but now they're thrown around so blatantly that it just doesn't really mean anything anymore. But again, it's that fear of being tarred as that stops men from exhibiting anger, and no feelings are good or bad. Like you were saying, like authenticity. So I'm of the belief that everyone is responsible for their own feelings. No one can offend you. You can only choose to be offended, because, and to demonstrate this, if someone comes up to you and they're smiling and waving and they're speaking in their own language, but it all sounds quite nice to you, but in their language, like they're cussing you out for all the F's and B's and everything in the alphabet, but you don't know, you're not going to take offense to it. So the fact that you can understand what they're saying makes no difference. You still have the choice whether or not to take offense.
Right.
And when it comes to feelings, like part of what I do with people is to help them to develop a healthier relationship with anger, because I think there's lots of really good things in anger, like focus, determination, perseverance. It's that fire that helps you push through the things that that you might otherwise just give up. So there's healthy expressions in all of this stuff, but it's, if we're going to be ignorant that we feel anger, or if we're going to avoid it, if we're going to deny it, all we really do is make sure that feeling remains underdeveloped, misunderstood, and dangerous. It's only when you start to understand these and develop them, just like you would any skill, that then they become a tool, like a fine tool that you can use to really do some good stuff.
Yeah. And it's dangerous in that we as men are, if we're uncomfortable with feelings, which is just another word for emotion, but if we're uncomfortable with it, then when someone else expresses it to us, we can either become dismissive or reactionary or hyper controlling about it. And that's not healthy either. But that's based in our own fear and weakness. And so it's important to tap into your range of emotion and understand yourself. That's I mean, you have emotions, you can't escape it.
Yep.
You can't escape it. And so to deny it is foolishness.
It's a really good point about like your feelings that you deny showing up in other people. Like that's a huge block to be able to connect with people. So the more you can accept and understand in yourself, the more you can accept and understand in other people, and be able to, like, so an example of that is like before you were saying, you know, we just want to make sure that no one thinks that this stuff is easy to do. And I've noticed myself, sometimes I will be almost, I feel like I'm calling people out, or I'm up a little bit up on my high horse. And that is in me. I haven't accepted that this stuff is hard. And that's a judgment that I'm putting on myself, that sometimes I do find it hard. Sometimes it does take a little bit to push through. And that's a judgment that then sometimes comes out on other people. Like when I'm like, you know, keep going. Let's just keep moving forward, and trying to make it sound like it's easier than it is. But again, like anything that you don't accept in yourself, anything you don't understand, anything you don't work through, you're going to keep seeing it in other people. They're going to hold up a mirror and you're going to see it.
Yeah, exactly. And when we get frustrated or have a reaction to that, that's the warning light that says, okay, I need to stop and look at this. What am I not seeing? What am I blind to? Where is this not showing up where it needs to in my life? Or how am I resisting this? And it's all to become a better man.
Yeah.
It's all to become more fulfilled in life. It's all to have a feeling of worth and strength and power. You know, there are a lot of shows on the streaming services these days. I've noticed especially a lot of shows about Vikings or Middle Ages and things like that. Those guys were badass. They just, I mean, they expressed everything and lived on the edge according to what they show us on TV. Now, I'm sure it was really kind of different, but I think there's something that taps into a man's heart, that we want that freedom to express this energy that we have. Men have energy. And we need to be able to express it, whether in some way. And I feel like the constraints that get put on us from society and from family and expectations and this, that, and the other restrains that, throws a wet blanket over that fire. And we all desire to throw that blanket off and let that fire blaze. And that's kind of what we're talking about. Is tap into your values, tap into your purpose, live life intentionally.
I did a few courses last year, and there was a big affinity that I had towards that warrior energy. And I think there's this, you know, especially if someone is stuck, or they're depressed, or there's just that really stuckness to it, that warrior kind of energy is really what can help you bust out of that. It's not about walking around like a warrior all the time, but that gives you the energy to get out of that stuck state. But I think that society they fear the warrior. Like they fear men who are powerful. And I'm not talking about like, you know, powerful and evil men. I'm just talking about men in their power. And I think that there's a lot about society that actually, because it has reason to fear men and what powerful men in the past have done, Hitler, like obviously there's been some real atrocities that have happened. So they have reason to fear this kind of energy. So I get that completely. But none of those were healed, mature men. Like they were all boys who were acting from wounds, acting from this person beat me up or I got bullied in school, and then they're out to then go and take that out on the world. So I think that, like, and again, part of that warrior energy, part of that comes from ignoring, denying that this stuff is in us, and then it just stays underdeveloped, and then it comes out in lots of different unproductive and self-destructive ways. But it's again, it's finding that healthy expression, and being able to bring that out into the world in a way that's going to contribute something that's bigger than yourself.
Right. I read a quote once that said, a good man is not a gentle man.
Yeah.
A good man is a dangerous man under voluntary control.
Yeah.
And another one is, you cannot say that you are a peaceful man unless you are capable of creating great turmoil and chaos.
Yep.
Because if you're not capable of creating trouble, but you're withholding it, if you're not capable of creating all that chaos and trouble, you're just passive. You're not peaceful.
100%. And it's, yeah.
And that's the society does fear powerful men, because we have learned that powerful men can turn into despots and tyrants. But a powerful man who has command of himself, who knows what he's about, who understands his values and his purpose, and who is living intentionally and authentically, should not be a source of fear. It should be a source of admiration. I mean, some of the best presidents we've had in the United States, or some of the best leaders in the world, have been those kind of people.
Yep.
You know that they are capable of great anger and wrath, but they are just, and they are kind, and they know who they are. And that, I think, is what you and I both are trying to help men tap into. Sometimes I just want to shake people and say, wake up, live life. There is more to life than sitting on your butt watching TV every night and eating potato chips.
Yep.
You know.
But you know what? That's also part of their journey. It's where they're at now. I had the same.
Exactly.
I had the same thing, and it's like, it's because you can see the potential in them. It's like you can see that, you know. And for me also, I see myself in them, and it's like, dude, I know where you were, and even though you might feel comfortable, like you're watching TV, you're eating junk food, all that sort of stuff, and it might feel good. I know that you're in pain as well. That stuff that you're putting over the top is covering up a whole bunch of pain.
Exactly.
And what you were saying about the leaders who have done horrible things in the world, again, that was because they have wounds, like these gaping wounds that people have done things to them earlier in their life, and they're taking it out on the world. But the men who are healed and that they were amazing leaders, that is because they're filling their own cup, they're meeting all of their own needs, and they're holding to their values. And they're not lead, like the old power structure was power over others. But the new power structure that's emerging, or the one that's always been so influential, has always been power from within. So it's that real sense of, I'm in integrity. I know what my values are. I'm living them every day. I know what my needs are. I'm meeting them on my own. So there's no need for transactional relationships. And because my cup is overfilling, I'm giving to other people as well. And it's like making that stand to live the way that you want to live, and be that lead by example, gives permission to everyone around you to do exactly the same thing. And that's what a real leader is.
Yes, absolutely. I like that. You mentioned overflowing, the cup overflowing. That is, in my opinion, the whole purpose of living an authentic life and living your purpose in life. It's not for us. We are not put here on this earth to live a self-centered life. Every one of us has a purpose, a reason for being on this earth. And if we are not pursuing that, if we are not looking for that, if we are not living it, we're not being authentic. And it's not about us. It's about making the world better for everyone else. It's about elevating everyone. The powerful man does not climb on top of the mountain of people and stand there and stomp them down. He raises them up. And that is the whole intent of purpose, is to lift everyone else up. But you can't do that if you're not authentic, doing it for yourself, if you're not tapped in, turned on, being intentional. That's it. Everybody talks about the world, making the world a better place. Um, well, this is how. This is how a man shows up and does that. And we talk about, one of the things I talk about is legacy. Men want to know that they're going to have an impact on the world. They're going to leave a legacy. People are going to remember them. Their influence is going to be felt after they're gone. How do we do that? By living intentionally and living our purpose. And if we don't identify our values, if we don't honor our values, if we don't live our purpose, that can't happen. We will pass away like a candle that's blown out in the wind, and that will be it.
Yeah, and that's kind
Nobody
of
wants that.
No. And that's kind of perfect, because it actually kind of brings us full circle, because what we were saying about the expectations that men only feel like they have value based on the home that they provide, the salary that they earn, all that, those sort of things. Again, like, it's not about us. Like, so it isn't about whatever we can selfishly get for ourselves. It is about the bigger contribution that we can make to the world, to our family, to the people in our local community. So yes, our value is in how we provide for our family, but it's not the money, or it's not the fact that we only have value. It's making sure that we're authentic, that we know what our values are, so that we can make sure our cup is full, and that all of our needs are being met, so that we can then meet the needs of others. So it's looking after ourselves so that we can look after other people. And I think society tells us this is what it means to be a man. So they're just saying, this is at point A, here's where you are. This is point C, this is where your value is what you can give. But we just missed point B, where it's like, we've got to first look after ourselves first, and then we can give to other people.
Right. And yeah, yes. That, it comes back to that feeling of, well, it's selfish to do that, or it's not. No. That's a story. That's not true.
Yep.
That's not true. I mean, there are a lot of men that would never have a selfish bone in their body. So the threat of being selfish in pursuing your value it's not going to happen, dude. Let it go.
See, to someone who is a people pleaser, just someone who.
That's hard.
But yeah, if you're a people pleaser, you might not even like if you're just meeting your needs by a people pleaser's standpoint, because they completely betray themselves in their needs, they might look at you and say you're completely selfish, even though you might give as much value as you get in return. But so again, it's like different levels of, and different people's perceptions based on their own experience of life and what's okay for them, and then what they think is okay for everyone else. Again, that comes back to the authenticity. You get to choose what's okay for you and what's okay for in your situation.
Exactly. And that whole people pleaser mindset, or avoiding having difficult conversations, this isn't working for me, or feeling like, allowing yourself to be imposed upon, or taken for granted, or taken advantage of, and then going and feeling like a victim. All of those things come back to exactly what you were talking about before in childhood. Those experiences that we've had there that have taught us, we call them saboteurs. They've taught us that, and they were there to protect us. Because like you said, we relied on our parents for absolutely everything. And if mom and dad couldn't provide, then that would mean death for us. And we can't handle that as children. And so these little friends show up and tell us it's your fault. You're the one. This is why it's on you. And as we grow up and we discover that people aren't perfect, and we're more mature and able to handle that, we learn, but then the voices stick around. And by then we're so comfortable with them. Sometimes they don't even have to read the script. We read the script for them. We say the lines for them. We tell ourselves all those stories. And so we have to work against those. We have to identify those things. But yes, those are the things that we have to work against. Those are the roadblocks. That's what makes it hard, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, not only do we have all this societal stuff to deal with, but that's what makes it hard, is it's inner work.
Yep.
It's inner work, looking at ourselves, being honest with ourselves about who we are, being honest with our experiences, being willing to feel the feelings that come with those experiences, and acknowledging that as a man, I may not have it all together. I may not be perfect. I have all these feelings. This is tough. But it is the powerful man, the man that feels himself to be the weakest is powerful beyond most if he is willing to sit and wrestle with these demons and fight this fight and come out the other side. He has more respect from me than the man driving the Bentley down the street. Because he has valued himself, he has found his worth, and he has stood on his own 2 feet. Good for him. And that energizes me when I see a client going through this and working on this and making decisions. Yeah, you may have somebody in your family that says, you're not doing that. I don't like that. Don't act that way. Well, then we got to work on some compromise, and we have to help them see what's going on. We have to help them understand, and we have to talk, but it's not the end of the world. And it's just so powerful. And I think you and I both, I know I have, and I'm sure you have been through this very thing, have been through that fire and worked on this stuff and wrestled with it and bear the scars on our hearts from this stuff. Learning to stand on your own 2 feet hurts. It's painful. But I think it's worth it. Would you agree?
Completely. Like I could have stopped. Like when you used to talk about the scars and going through the fire, I'm still going through it. Like,
oh, absolutely.
I could have stopped. Like, I'm sure all of us could have stopped at one point when it was just like, I've learned enough to kind of be able to see the world and be able to offer value to people who were where I was at the beginning. But it's like, there's something about, maybe I'm just a masochist, but there's something about just continuing to peel back the layers and just really understand yourself and to really take yourself on. And like you were saying, like, fear is something that it creates that fight or flight, or it switches on that fight or flight response that we all have. And to be someone who can just stare your fear in the face and not be called to, or not be controlled by it, not even be able to have to react to it, and just to be able to pause and really just get a good look at exactly what it is, understand it, befriend it, and then even make it, like, see it. Like, there was someone I was talking to last week, and they were saying they've had this moment of clarity, like they're looking back on every event in their life with gratitude and sort of peace. There's no negative emotion there. Like, anything bad that's happened to them, they now see that there was a reason that this happened, and this was the lesson I got from that. Then that happened, and then this is why exactly it had to go down like that to get me to where I am now. And it was such an amazing thing, because, and it's not about being toxic. Was it toxic positivity? It's about anything that bad happens is a lesson. Like, the only reason, what is it? Suffering is the price we pay for being attached to things. So we don't have to suffer if we're not attached to something going the way that we want it to. We can just take it for the lesson that it is instead.
Right. And it's never a process that ends. There's not an ending point. You just keep working on it. And fear isn't going to hurt you.
Yeah.
Fear is not going to hurt you. So you can stop and look at it. It may cause you some pain, but it's not going to hurt you. Yep. You need to look at that. I mean, it's important. We're at the top of the hour.
Yes.
And this has been a fantastic conversation. Yes, this has been a really, really rich conversation. Really good stuff. Maybe we can do it again sometime. We'll see what people think about it.
Yeah, sounds good.
That's awesome. I would just encourage anybody that's watching this, that's watched this long, if something has resonated with you, reach out to Aaron or myself. We would love to continue the conversation with you and talk to you about what it looks like to continue this process. So, Aaron, you have anything?
No, I really enjoyed the conversation again. Like, what was your biggest takeaway from this? Like, again, if you watched this long, it was for a reason, and no matter what, there would have been something that you can take that might have just changed the way that you see the world a little bit. And taking that, like, what will be different for you moving forward?
Yeah.
So,
What will you take from it, and how will you apply it? It's
yeah.
good stuff. We'd love to hear that. All right.
Yeah.
Well, thanks a lot, Aaron. It's been good.